Agenda for the regular council meeting of September 1st, 2015 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Kenny, second by Councillor Cunningham. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of August 17th, 2015 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Renhawa, second by Councillor Niche. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the public hearing meeting of August 17th, 2015 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Item 3C, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of August 17th, 2015 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And item 3D, recommendation that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole Council meeting of August 17th, 2015 be received. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Item 6A, as a report from City Planner regarding development variance permits at 1424 Piggott Place.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The subject of the first report is property located at 1424 Piggott Place. Computer is working. Anyways, it's located just at the bottom. This is going to take a little bit of time. This is the property in question. The application is essentially to legitimize the existing encroachment of 0.3 meters or 1 foot, which is not unusual in Prince Rupert, especially with the older buildings. The proposal is to proposal is to rebuild the existing garage on the existing footprint and to add a room on top of the garage. This will be the view from the Piggott Place, and this is the view from Piggott Avenue from the rear of the property. Somewhat distorted because we have a two-dimensional picture and three-dimensional model. The rear part looks in place. The front or the rear part, the front part in your picture, and the rear part in your picture, the front of the building should be really aligning right here, so it's not going to be encroaching anymore. As a date of this report, and in fact, as at today, I did not receive any comments that would preclude you adopting this development variance permit.
So the recommendation is that the development variance permit application number DP 1516 for 1424 Piggott Place proceeds to final consideration. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, item 6B, another report from City Planner.
This is the first reading of this application in front of you. The subject of this property is okay. For some reason, it's not responding. Nevertheless, the subject property is at 1888 Atlin Avenue. It's one of the rare vacant lots in that area of town. The application is attached, and it is to vary the height variance by 3 meters. However, it behooves some attention to how this is going to work. So this is directly from our zoning bylaw. This is the formula that we use in establishing the heights of the buildings. and the nature of the ground that we are looking at is along the lines of the third graph. And essentially, what we do is average the heights. So all of these words translate into a graphic of this nature right here, and this is going to give you a better view of what is being asked. So this is Atlan Avenue. The height of the building from Atlan Avenue will be 7.3 meters, while the permitted height is 9 meters. So essentially, the building remains below the maximum height. However, when we average our heights, this would be the extent to which the building should extend. At this point in time, there are two options. One is to ask for development variance permit of 3 meters, and the other one is to bring in fill and retaining wall that would allow this to take place. So essentially, by going through this process, you will not adversely affect the views of people who are uphill on Atlan Avenue. In fact, give them a bit of a freeboard that it's not to the maximum height. And the rear part of the building, the option that the developer or the applicant is seeking, would give him a very small amount of gross floor area, but essentially it would be a cheaper method of construction. So the request is for notification to the neighborhood.
Okay, so recommendation that the development variance permit application number DP 1518 for 1888 Atlan Avenue proceed to public notification. Moved by Councillor Kinney, seconded by Councillor Moreau. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, item 6C, report from Chief Financial Officer regarding the July 2015 monthly financial report. Thank you, Mr. Cricket.
Thank you. I'm going to highlight some of the notable items in the July 2015 monthly financial report. With respect to operating revenues, airport ferry revenue has increased $120,000. This is mainly due to an increase of $4 in the fee received from the Airport Society for Passenger Transportation. 911 revenue continues to decline. This is due to more landline customers switching to cellular phones. Currently, there is no municipal method to charge cell phone users for the 911 service, and our investigation into the ability to charge has pointed to it being something that must be dealt with by the province. Compared to the same period in 2014, total recreation revenue is up about $100,000. The revenue increase is a combination of bylaw fee increases effective January of this year, increased memberships sold, arena board advertising, vending machine commissions, and new program offering fees. Transit revenue declined $8,000 when compared with 2014. This is mainly due to a drop in cash rides and sales of monthly adult passes. The city has received the Prince Rupert Port Authority's 2015 payment in lieu of tax payment. The city's share is $138,000 short from what was budgeted. The budget was based on BC assessment values. The operating expenditures are within budget for this time of the year. With the 2015 financial plan being approved by Council in May, the service and supplies budget will now be used to a greater extent through the rest of the year. Utility budgets, the aggregate operating revenues and expenditures are expected to be close to budget. And with respect to the capital purchases and capital works, the Council approving in May all of the budget for 2015 would mean that any of the capital projects are well underway throughout the summer, and we're starting to make a lot of payments given it's the construction season. And finally, the Digby Island Ferry was in refit in May of this year in Ketchikan, Alaska. There is an overage compared to budget, but it's largely due to the change in the exchange rate and additional time that was required to lease the substitute service. Thank you.
Okay, a recommendation that council receive this report for information purposes. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 6D, a report from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the permissive property tax exemption consideration.
Staff is looking for direction with respect to rates and the term of the next permissive property tax exemption bylaw. The Council has the authority under the Community Charter to grant permissive exemption from municipal property taxes. In order to grant permissive tax exemptions for the year 2016, Council must adopt a tax exemption bylaw by October 31st of this year. The last bylaw was in effect for a period of 3 years, which was to provide for the existing council cycle. Given that the council cycle is now 4 years, it is reasonable to extend the bylaw for this time frame, which also provides stability to the applicants. Bylaw amendments can still be made yearly within the 4-year period. Although council has the authority to exempt properties from taxation up to 100%, the previous council decided to exempt some properties partially. We've provided an analysis, and the two options that are presented, of course, council has its discretion to vary within or outside of. The 2016 estimated value of property tax exemption is $332,000 if council were to give 100% exemption to all applicants, or $316,000 if council prefers to continue with the 2015 exemption rates. Exemption values for 2017, 2018, and 2019 will change depending on whether assessed values increase or decrease. Upon receiving Council's direction on the rates of exemption and the terms, staff will prepare the appropriate bylaw for 3 readings, at which point the City is required to publicly post and advertise the proposed exemption amounts and recipients as per the requirements of the Community Charter.
Great. So our decision is either to give direction for 100% exemption or to stick to the current 2015 exemptions. That's what you're asking for, one or the other?
Or if council would like to change it somewhere around in that, anything under 100% is up to the council's discretion, 100% being the maximum.
Any thoughts from council? Councilor Murrow?
I'd be strongly in favor of restoring the 100% exemption. Looking at the tangible impact on our budget, I think offering a 4-year cycle of the 100% exemption not only provides us certainty for our budgeting in the future, but it also provides great certainty for a lot of these community organizations who are on very small operating budgets. So I'd like to make the motion for the 100% exemption for a 4-year cycle.
Any seconders? Second by Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, report from the corporate administrator regarding the city's Fit for Children.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the August 17th regular meeting of Council, a resolution was passed for staff to gather the costs associated with attending the conference for City's Fit for Children Provincial Summit to be held in Vernon on November 12th and 13th. As outlined in the cost, there's a total cost allocation of $1,892 per person to attend. So it's at this point that Council would advise staff as to who would like to attend and go forward.
Comments from council? Councillor Kinney?
I suggest that
Your microphone, Councillor Kinney.
I would like to suggest that the mayor attend this. I don't see why we all should have to go, but somebody should be there for sure.
Councillor Cunningham?
I would tend to agree because, $1,900 is $1,900, and you're starting at it up if 5 people go, that's close to $10,000. And if just one person goes, he can bring back all the information to us.
Other comments?
Do we have any budget for that?
There is still some operating budget left for the mayor to attend a conference such as this.
Okay, so the recommendation is that council receives the following report for information purposes, and that council authorize, guessing the mayor, to attend the city's Fit for Children Provincial Summit in Vernon, BC on November 12th and 13th, 2015. Okay, so moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion? And just before we do the question there, I'll just say that this was brought to us by the Success by Six organization, who are working on major policy level to do kind of design work around cities that are designed for children in mind. And so this summit is actually a policy summit for municipalities specifically to help design new neighborhoods and new subdivisions or things like that that have children and families in mind. So new design elements, things that are kind of leading research from around the world and things like that. So this was brought to us, and last council meeting we had tabled this to get the costs. So just so the folks are aware. Okay, so question's been called. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, item 10A, report from the city planner regarding the proposal to use a portion of the Masonic Lodge at 180 6th Avenue East for storage.
This item was before council for the first reading on June 8th, and due to the time that elapsed, I felt prudent to include with the full application the report from that meeting for your references. Before we talk about this specific application, I think it merits repeating 2 points which are important in analyzing this application. City of Prince Rupert, first point is the City of Prince Rupert is at the brinks of some major industrial development, and whilst we are sometimes overrun with proposals, applications, speculation, and interests, one of the areas that is sadly lacking in Prince Rupert is industrial land use, and that is equally important for light industrial and heavy industrial, as we have discussed that in a couple of applications in the last couple of months. Of course, that excludes industrial projects for major industrial sites for major projects. Now, whilst all this is taking place, developers are not prepared to invest into developing industrial land, and so we are caught in a situation that often translates into conversations over the counter or in brief meetings where ideas about using areas in residential area and commercial area for light industrial use. That is kind of counterintuitive to the planning principles. And so just to let you know that this application is not the only one of this nature. This is the only application that has reached this far. The second point that is worthwhile keeping in mind is that service organizations such as Masonic Lodge were at one time the mainstay of our community fabric in the past, which has changed drastically with declining population, declining participation in the clubs, and declining use of the facility for things like weddings and parties that would bring in additional revenue. All that translates is to buildings of such nature becoming a liability rather than opportunity, and in this case the applicant is trying to harness the opportunities. With that background, and by the way, the first 2 points are totally out of staff's realm of affecting. And so often, we end up catching flack because we really cannot do anything more than assign land for that land use, which we have. Now, as analysis, I was told that my impatience about waiting for the computer to work is something. Sometimes computers do that, and sometimes they don't. So this time, apparently, it's working. So the subject property is located on 6th Avenue and McBride. It is in your attachments. The application is to convert bottom floor. These are the site plans. This is all included in your attachments. Is to convert the bottom floor of the Masonic Lodge into storage, and essentially you will not see anything different on the outside. The only difference that will be visible is the driveway that would go to the loading dock that will be located on the easterly side of the Masonic Hall. Later on, I will be touching upon some of the concerns and asks that were done at the information meeting. And so at the upper right-hand corner, you have an example of what the applicant is proposing to put in as a fence. Now, before I go any further, at the last meeting, I was asked to clarify why I recommended the method that you will see continuously recommended, and did I consider split zoning. And so I did consider split zoning, as I did vertical zoning, as I did comprehensive development zoning, and mixed-use zoning. All of these methods are available, and they're applicable, except within the context of the rules as we have designed them, they all bring different complications. Very briefly, split zoning, the genesis of split zoning is in a resource land use and agricultural land use, ALR land uses, where you have large parcels of land and somebody would like to have a house on a corner of the farm. And after you go through the process and having that allowed, we usually place zones along property lines. And so on a large parcel of land, you will have measurement that will show the location which is zone residential, which is zone for the farm or for a tree forest license. That ergonomic would bring complications to our mapping that really doesn't merit the effort. The vertical zoning, which on the first blush applies here because you will separate upper and lower floor, but it really requires a second instrument, which is a strata. So as part and parcel of strata subdivision, you will create vertical zoning so that one owner on the bottom floor will have one use and the other owner on the upper floor will have another use. The measurements, the methods of how you couch into the bylaw are not complicated, but would become very cumbersome in our zoning bylaw. The comprehensive development zone, this project is just too small for something of that nature. Comprehensive development zone is exactly what it says. It's comprehensive and includes a whole number of different uses. And so inside the comprehensive zones, then the idea is that you are going to create a whole different set of setbacks and separations for different uses. In the end, it would create another zone and add more complication to our zoning bylaw. And the mixed-use zoning, it's the same thing as comprehensive development zoning, applied to smaller properties. It's a little bit of a move in the planning realm to use mixed zoning, especially in the commercial areas where you want to bring in more residential use. Again, it would create a complication of creating a new zone. And so, not for the wrong reasons, but for the right reasons, I would like to, my intent is to create a zoning bylaw which is usable, user-friendly, creates good rules, and it doesn't become cumbersome. Therefore, my recommendation remains as originally proposed in the first reading to I'm going to rotate this wrong way. There you go. So for the official community plan, essentially this would be called spot zoning. That spot would be zoned, rezoned from residential to business industrial, and it will be simply a mapping exercise. The zoning will be changed from R2, two-family residential, to M1 light industrial zone, with the addition that we would also include assembly as a permitted use in the light industrial zone. By the way, assembly was permitted in M1 before the new zoning bylaw. So that being said, and keeping in mind how short we are on industrial land, I don't think that assembly halls would be essentially looking at the industrial area for their premises, and I don't think we'll be creating a precedent and open the door to a whole new set of requirements that would loose our zoning bylaw ajar. So that being said, the applicant has conducted public information meeting. All the information on public information meeting is included in attachment 6. It was a successful meeting. There were in excess of 30 people that came into the room. It was very very fluid and good meeting. Information was exchanged, and everything that the applicant has collected is included in the attachment. My attitude towards information meetings that is for the applicant to conduct and to provide information to staff and council. Our presence there is simply as a monitor and also to answer questions regarding our rules. During that meeting, there were a few things that were mentioned, and in meeting with the applicant, we synthesized them to the following. And the applicant is required to provide response prior to public hearing or at the public hearing regarding playground safety, noise, specifically backup warning beepers. Essentially, the ask is to turn off the backup safety beepers at the time when they arrive in a neighborhood. Average number of trucks per month, concerns about affecting property values, and the covenant, which will be registered on title of ownership, restricting the use to storage of furniture only. Items which have been resolved since then is the 2.4 meter fence that I showed you earlier, which will include privacy slats, and the new driveway and loading area that will have to be constructed to city engineering specifications. I have done external referrals. Ministry of Highways response is in attachment 7, and they're prepared to sign off on the bylaw prior to public hearing. Internal referrals will be completed prior to public hearing. Now, we have received 2 letters at the time of preparing this report, an additional letter which was received yesterday or today, and I believe that you have it in your hands. This is prior to public notification, subject to your decision. The notifications would go out tomorrow, and generally we include the letters that come after public notification. However, all of these letters will be repeated in the public hearing report for your records and for your decision making. In conclusion, Council continues to have the option to proceed to second reading and public hearing, or reject the application. I believe it's prudent step prior to making your decision to listen to the public hearing. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councilor Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one technical question related to the covenant that the applicant is proposing to put on there. With a covenant put on the title of the land, and we are rezoning the land, should there ever be a change in ownership, that covenant would remain in place?
That covenant is tied to the ownership, and it stays there with the new owner, and the only way that covenant can be discharged is with the agreement and approval by the council. That's how it's going to be written.
Other questions? My question, I guess, is the hours of operations, has that been indicated to you yet, or?
The hours of operations are not necessarily well defined because the transport can take place during let's say odd hours, but I will include that as a request from the applicant to address that. That was discussed, and the desire is to reduce the traffic to average hours, something
9 to 5,
between
8 to 4.
8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or something like that. And in a brief conversation with the applicant just prior to the meeting, I understand that they're considering including that in their covenant.
Councilor Cunningham?
The only feedback I've got from neighbors so far is concern about trucks backing up and that. And I was wondering if the deliveries were made during the daytime, then the people that are looking at doing the deliveries could have some of their staff there to make sure when it's backing up across the street or something like that, that they've got swampers. A lot of people have said a truck driver can't see from the cab of a big truck and that. And I think that the people that are going to be doing the deliveries would love to have a swamper or somebody helping them back up, and it's a small thing to ask for, considering the safety of kids and that in the neighborhood. So I think it's something they could look at also.
That was discussed at some length at the meeting, and arrival of a truck is really difficult to manage. I imagine it would be up to applicant to commit, and I asked him to commit that in writing, so it's not only in words, it's in fact. Can you hold a truck that arrives at 3 in the morning somewhere in a parking lot before they can unload? That's going to be up to them to respond. And the conversation about swampers, I actually researched into the beepers and such, and it appears that the beepers are necessary when the truck is backing up when the driver cannot see clearly behind, but it's not clear if you have a swamper, if that is also in play. And the way that the legislation reads, it appears that this is more of a company policy rather than legislation. But I will leave that to the applicant who's sitting in a galley to address that point exactly to what you were asking for and how they can commit to it, so that, unfortunately, we cannot coin that in our bylaw. We can coin that in our resolution that I can attach as an additional requirement.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Cricket.
Thank you.
So, recommendation that council give second reading to the proposed Quality of Life Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 3373, 2015, and to the proposed Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 3374, 2015, and that council schedule a public hearing prior to the next regular council meeting scheduled September 14th, 2015. Moved by Councillor Kinney, second by Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to say I agree with Mr. Krekik's analysis that it would be prudent for us to move forward to the public hearing stage in order to hear back from residents who are going to be immediately impacted, because we have already had some of those concerns voiced, whether it's traffic safety or altering the character of the neighborhood, those types of concerns. I definitely agree that moving forward to the public hearing stage is a great idea. I think a lot of people understand the balance that we're trying to strike is, this project in particular addresses a shortage of industrial land with that permitted use. It supports small business development. It encourages greater investment in Prince Rupert, and it enhances our tax base as well. So with all of these different things we're trying to put into play, I think it would be prudent to move forward to the public hearing phase. This proposal definitely warrants further consideration, but again, I think it's important that we hear directly from area residents about their concerns, because they're ultimately the ones that are going to be immediately impacted.
Other comments? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. Cricket. Okay, item 12A is the Housing Committee. Just a quick report that we're coming back into our fall schedule. Summer has ended, and I think everyone's getting back into their grooves, and many organizations, staff's returning, and we're working with multiple organizations on the housing front. So I think in the next 2 weeks we'll have something more to report, but at this stage I don't believe we have much to report at the moment. Okay, so now we'll move into any reports or questions or queries from members of council. Councilor Cunningham?
I'd like to bring it to council's attention that just a week ago there was a national championship held at I think it was Good Times Games and Electronics, and a local boy, Tyler Winther, won and is going to be going to Japan to compete on for the World Championship. And that Rob Gruber has organized not one but 2 or 3 of these national championships, and it's just a small little store in town, but I think it's something that should take some recognition.
Absolutely, and what I think just to add to that is that Good Times Games has quite an international reputation. They've Wizards of the Coast, which is a gaming company that makes games like Dungeons and Dragons and Magic and all those sites, have actually made a video of the store featuring it online, which has received thousands and thousands of views. These guys, Rob Gruber and his crew, travel around and they go to these conventions, gaming conventions all around North America and abroad, and they're instantly recognized. And so I think it's something that the residents don't necessarily know, is that this small little game shop there on 2nd Avenue has quite a large reputation globally, and also is probably the prime area where all our youth go to engage with each other, and it's very social and it's very interactive, and I think they do a great job, and I'm really glad you brought that up. Other reports from council? Councilor Kinney?
Thank you, Ewart. This isn't a report. It's I'd like to ask if staff could look into the cost to get rid of those trees in front of the parking lot in the shopping center, if we could get a cost price on that, because that's spoiling the view of our harbor, which we all like, and it looks terrible because that's on our property. Okay.
Okay. Other council? Okay, I just have one last thing to say then. This is an initiative for small businesses called Small Town Love. It's happening all over BC. It's for basically local independent businesses. You spend $100 and you get a whole whack of marketing and pictures and videos and things like that done with your business. And about 30 businesses in Prince Rupert have signed up for this. You get featured on a website called loveprincerupert.com. It's sponsored in part by the Northern Development Initiative Trust. They're paying for kind of the upfront costs of the marketing and things like that. It's very professionally done. If you want to check it out, go to loveprincerupert.com. There is a deadline of September 18th for small businesses to register for a big trade show that will happen in November. You can register at any time, but if you register by September 18th, you'll be in the trade show that will feature your business. So essentially, you spend $100 to get $1,000 worth of marketing done for your business, very professionally done, and it kind of helps really market just small businesses in the community. So if any small business owners out there are looking for that extra boost, $100 will get you a huge value. And I encourage you to sign up, and you can contact our economic developer officer, Paul Venditelli, and his email is paul.venditelli@princerupert.ca.
One small point, I don't know who actually owns that part, if it's the Department of Highways. But as you come off the ferry and go over the tracks on our famous Bluebird buses, there's one hell of a dip there, and if you're sitting in the back seat, you usually leave your seat. And I'd like to get staff to maybe talk to O'Brien or whoever's in charge of that and see if and when they're going to be fixing that section of Parker down by Co-op.
Do you know anything about that, Mr. Manager?
Yeah, I thought that was part of the love. Anyway, yeah, you can have a look at it.
Okay. Okay, anything further? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, moved by Councillor Kinney, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Motion's carried.